It is now my privilege to introduce our next speaker. He's a distinguished scholar, environmentalist, author, journalist, the leader of 350.org. Friends, please welcome Bill McKibben.
Well, thank you very much. It is a beautiful day in Albany. You guys look remarkable. I've been sending out pictures on Twitter and everybody's happy as can be to see you all here. And the first point I really want to make to you all is just to understand that there are people all over the world who are paying attention to what you're doing, just like you've been paying attention to what people all over the world are doing as they make these fights from one place to another. It happens now every day in every corner of the planet. It was last Saturday at the Nebraska State Capitol, where thousands of people gathered for the final stage of the fight against the Keystone Pipeline. It was in Australia yesterday, where hundreds of people went to jail to try to stop what would become the biggest coal mine on the planet. All over this earth now, every day, people are trying to figure out how to get in the way of this global warming machine, how to stand up to the fossil fuel industry before it runs us all over. Now, I'm sometimes a little pessimistic.
Not today.
The first book that I wrote first book about climate change, and it had the cheerful title, The End of Nature, okay? And there are days when it feels to me like we're way, way behind in this fight. I was talking with a friend of mine today who's a great glaciologist who works in Greenland. There's a big wildfire now burning on the edges of Greenland where the glacier has melted away. It's the first big wildfire they've ever had that we know of on that country. We just came through the 3 hottest years that the planet has ever seen. The last 3 years each set a record. And of course, with Mr. Trump in Washington, our country is now doing absolutely everything it can think of to make the problem worse, to dig the hole deeper, to get us in more trouble. What that means is that in every place that isn't Washington, D.C., and in every government building that isn't the White House, we need people stepping up and showing real leadership. Not half leadership, okay? Now, Governor Cuomo got lots of credit and lots of praise and lots of plaudits for banning fracking in the state of New York, and that was good. I'll say that I don't think he actually quite just did it out of the goodness of his heart. I think it might have had something to do with the fact that people across the Empire State organized like they'd organized never before and forced him to do it. But that said, let's give him the credit. That's what politicians are like, okay? But it makes no sense to say that you're banning fracking in New York and then build a power plant that demands that you go frack someplace else to do it. That is to say, there may be old-style corruption at the bottom of this CPV plant, but there is definitely a kind of intellectual corruption at the top of it. It makes no sense to say New York State is going to lead the planet, we're going to be 100% renewable, here we go, and then say, but we're going to build this frack gas power plant anyway. That thing's going to be there 50, 60 years from now. Is there anybody in this state who thinks that 50 or 60 years from now, fracked natural gas is going to be the fuel of choice for powering this planet? Of course not. Of course not. We're already at the point where solar and wind are the cheapest way to provide power. We can do this. We are doing this. There are places around the planet that are demonstrating how it happens. I mean, Denmark last year generated half the power it used from the wind. Either that means that the Danes have figured out how to corner the world's wind supply, or it means that they're putting to use the same technology that everybody else has got. They're just stepping up and showing the political will. You guys are crucial to providing the political will, okay? Politicians, well, politicians in a sense are like windmills, or they're like weather vanes, you know? If the wind blows hard enough, then that's the direction that they will point. And our job is to be that wind, all right? Now, the other guys blow pretty hard because they've got lots of money, all right? And left to its own devices, money wins every time. Our job is not to leave it to its own devices. Our job is to be there each day and every day, pushing just as hard as the people who get paid to push in the other direction. It shouldn't have to be that way. You know, the Wawa Yonda 6 should not in a rational world have to go off to spend time in jail. The Tim DeChristopher's of the world should not really have had to spend a couple of years in a federal prison. In a rational world, we would listen to the scientists when they say the worst thing that ever happened is happening, and then we would go and do everything we could to make it stop. But in a world where money and power usually rule, we can't count on reason. We can only count on the kind of shared love for each other, for the world around us, and for the generations that are going to have to come afterwards. That has to be our fuel, the way that money is the fuel for the CPVs of the world. And I tell you that that fuel is powerful. As powerful as the sun or the wind are, that love that powers this nonviolent revolution has got to be even more powerful. It's got to be the thing that in our time we draw on. And you guys are doing your part here in the Hudson Valley to make that point. It's getting heard. It's getting heard all over the world. People are paying attention. We need Governor Cuomo to pay attention now. And we need him to know that we're not going to go away, that this fight in 100 other forms is going to continue as long as it takes to protect the one planet that we have. This place, New York State, is so unbelievably beautiful. It's the kind of overlooked, I mean, when people talk about nature in America, their heads turn west, you know, and they want those big vistas of the Rocky Mountains or whatever, but there is nothing that matches the beauty of this state, the beauty of the Finger Lakes, or all the water that starts over at Niagara Falls and the Mohawk Valley, and above all, maybe the mighty Hudson. I've spent much of my life up in the Adirondacks, so I know where it all starts up there on the shoulder of Mount Marcy, and then comes down through Glens Falls and wends its way south till it spreads out in those beautiful vistas as we get downstate. That's land that's been there for millions of years. There's people that's been there for thousands of years protecting it. Our job in that chain is to protect it now, to understand its beauty, to understand what it means to the people who are there and the people who will come, and to stand up for it. Thank you guys so much for being the ones who are standing up.